Firefighters had a hard time rescuing the injured, but the next second, Captain Owen was startled. He swore he was just trying to perform CPR, not using much force. Just a while ago, the fire department received a call about an accident at the home of a rich man in town. Brett accidentally broke his arm while changing a tire. Luckily, he was discovered in time, and the firefighters successfully used an airbag to lift the car, immediately sending Brett to the hospital. However, after being discharged, Brett insisted on stepping into his cryo sauna. Ignoring his wife Kendra's advice, he claimed it would accelerate cell regeneration, and with that, he opened the door and went in. Kendra had no choice but to walk away as the machine started. The temperature quickly dropped to 0. Later, Kendra dialed 911.
I think my husband froze to death.
And firefighters soon arrived on the scene. Brett stood motionless inside the sauna, unresponsive to everyone's calls. Kendra said she had just returned from a run, only to find her husband frozen like a statue. Immediately, she unplugged the sauna, trying a hairdryer to defrost him, but to no effect. The firefighters had to pry the machine open, and Brett showed no sign of reaction the whole time. Captain Owen tried to touch him, feeling the coldness of his body. Since the paramedics had not yet arrived, Owen started compressions. Unfortunately, Owen's first compression punched through Brett's chest like a frozen bag of vegetables, leaving everyone stunned. Later, paramedic Tommy checked Brett, confirming he was beyond recovery. Fortunately, evidence showed that Brett had died before the firefighters arrived, sparing Owen from trouble. Later, Owen offered Kendra, his ex-girlfriend, to stay in his guest bedroom where she wouldn't be alone. She accepted, and as they were sitting on his couch, Owen received a call from a cop friend, Gabriel. Now, the police had evidence suggesting Brett's death wasn't accidental, but a result of poisoning. Nerve paralysis had caused him to freeze to death in the sauna. At this moment, all clues pointed to Kendra. Owen then discovered Kendra had a previous marriage. During a honeymoon, her former husband accidentally fell from a balcony and died. All signs suggested Kendra might not be a simple person, so Owen decided to distance himself from her. Unexpectedly, Kendra came to the fire station, claiming her innocence. She said she was wealthy enough that there was no need to kill her husband. She had a prenuptial agreement and could easily let him leave if things didn't work out.
I swear on my brother's soul, I did not do this.
He was moved by her sincerity and decided to help her find the truth. He immediately sought out Paul, known for spotting details others might miss. Soon, Paul noticed Kendra's dog, which according to surveillance had been lethargic after Brett took it out for an hour.
That's not a sad dog, it's a sick dog.
A vet confirmed the dog had ingested a large amount of pesticide. To everyone's surprise, Brett also suffered nerve paralysis due to pesticide exposure, leading to his death in the sauna. Kendra recalled that Brett had likely been to his greenhouse of sorts based on the surveillance time. Paul immediately noticed pesticide in the corner.
I know who did this. I know who killed Kendra's husband.
Who?
Kendra's husband.
Brett had recently broken his arm and might have tried gardening to pass the time, but with his injured right hand, he probably fumbled with the pesticide bottle, spilling a lot in a hurry. This type of pesticide is absorbed quickly through the skin. It just so happened that the dog stayed right next to the man. He was also exposed to a small amount of insecticide. That was why he was in such a bad condition. Unfortunately, Brett insisted on the cryo sauna, and by the time he felt cold, it was too late. The pesticide had paralyzed him, and he froze to death watching helplessly. Soon the police confirmed Paul was right. Brett's death was ruled accidental. Kendra was free to go. That night, Kendra visited Owen with fine wine. However, Paul couldn't shake the feeling something was off. A teammate's joke suddenly made him realize Brett intended to kill his wife. In the greenhouse, Paul noticed recently moved wire cutter. As a wealthy man, Brett wouldn't fix the tire himself. He wanted to cut Kendra's brake line, staging a car accident. To ensure she died, he even spiked a wine bottle with pesticide as a birthday gift. When Paul informed Owen, Kendra had already sipped the wine on the balcony.
Do not let her drink it.
She just did.
Kendra began to feel dizzy, followed by breathing difficulties. Her pupils shrank, her motor functions deteriorated, and she was close to suffocating.
Starting rescue breath.
Whoa, Dad, do not do that. The poison is on her lips. It will kill you too.
Time to get ready for 2 victims.
No, Dad. Dad?
Okay, you gotta breathe.
Dad.
You gotta breathe.
His vision blurred. The paramedics arrived.
I'll start BVM. Start a line, push a mill of atropine. Get the pulse ox. We're losing her.
Go again.
Kendra was saved just in time, but Owen collapsed. When he regained consciousness, he was in a hospital bed with Kendra watching over him.
I literally gave you the kiss of death.
I can think of worse ways to go.
Just as they were about to get closer, a cough broke the silence. Owen then realized they weren't alone in the room.
And there are 3 of them.
On the way to the firehouse, firefighter Casey commented on it being a new crack house in the neighborhood. The next day, Casey told Otis to turn the corner, and they checked out the new neighbors. In front of the house was a locked car with a toddler inside. Casey broke the window, but the mother came running out saying she was only gone for 5 minutes
You know what? I don't need to explain myself to you guys. Forget it.
and sped off. In the chief's office, they discussed what to do about the crack house. Casey suggested that they didn't need to burn anything down, but were just going to knock. The fire truck arrived. Casey and Harriman said they smelled smoke coming from inside the house. He kicked in the front door, ordering everyone out.
Everyone out of the house! Fire department!
A man asked them what they were doing there holding a machete. Later, he held it to a girl named Chelsea's throat as she whimpered. He told the firefighters that they were the ones who needed to evacuate. There was no fire there. Casey said actually, the fire was in the walls and ordered the guys to get it. The team began spraying their fire extinguishers. He released Chelsea and lunged at Casey with the machete. Harriman sprayed his extinguisher in his face. As Casey used the crowbar to disarm him, a physical fight ensued. But when the man ran, Casey told his guys to forget about him. Chelsea leaned against the wall as Casey promised they could help her. She yelled that they didn't know anything about her. But when her parents came in, she cried. Her father admitted he was wrong to throw her out. Stella told her she had been where she was standing. The only difference was her parents weren't alive to help her. Chelsea was surprised to learn her mom had come there the other day. She promised to hold her in her arms the entire time. Chelsea broke down saying she just wanted to be free. Both her parents held her tightly, telling her she was free. Paramedics arrived in a restaurant where 3 teens were lying on the floor vomiting and in terrible stomach pain. Dawson called for another ambulance. Brett asked where the employees were.
Hello? Anyone here?
Paramedic trainee Harris crawled behind the counter and found another person. He went over to check and said the oven cleaner could have caused cyanide poisoning.
I'll get the cyanide kit.
At that moment, the man's condition worsened. Harris thought he was having a heart attack and began chest compressions.
What are you doing, Harris?
He's not responding!
I said, what are you doing?
Chest compressions!
Harris, no, stop!
He stopped when he thought he had killed him.
Okay.
Dawson rushed over and said he had a pulse. When Brett came back, Dawson was mad, saying Harris had broken the man's rib and harshly asked him which part of observe only. He didn't understand. When they were done with the run, she called him a stupid kid, but admitted to Brett she would have done the same thing. In broad daylight, 2 men robbed a store. During the scuffle, the cashier was killed on the spot. A cop who had just gotten off duty was shopping in the store. Despite being a sergeant, he did nothing, simply watching as the robbers left. The police commissioner was furious when he heard the news. To handle such off-duty emergencies, the NYPD had issued off-duty guns to every officer. But this sergeant named Reed did nothing, especially considering he had been decorated twice for meritorious duty.
So how could you stand down on the scene of an armed robbery?
However, Reed was also in a difficult position. He was shopping with his 10-year-old daughter. The robbers were agitated. He thought about intervening, but with his daughter behind him, he hesitated. In the end, he chose to protect his daughter's safety.
So for lack of a perfect scenario, you let a shopkeeper take a bullet.
Let him? No, sir, I didn't let him.
Reed said there was no way he could have saved the cashier.
Couldn't or wouldn't. Our officers are paid to run toward danger, not turn away from it.
Yet despite this, Reed still didn't think he was wrong. Given the chance to do it again, he would still choose to protect his daughter. The angry commissioner immediately decided to temporarily reassign Reed to a desk job. Whether he would be demoted or fired would depend on the investigation results. To the commissioner, Reed was nothing but a coward. Soon the commissioner received news that Reed had been hospitalized with a gunshot wound. It turned out Reed had encountered a shooting incident on his way home. Many civilians were in danger.
You're a modified assignment. You were unarmed?
As more and more civilians fell, Reed couldn't just stand by and watch. He had to charge forward.
Unarmed.
He was already labeled a coward by 8 million people. He needed to do something to prove himself. These words left the commissioner speechless. He silently left the hospital room, only to be confronted by Reed's daughter outside. She asked the commissioner if he really thought her father was a coward.
Just to let you know, my dad's really brave and a good man.
If a cop can't even protect his own family, how can he protect others?